following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Golenbock University. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Peter Golenbock is here. I'm here. Alan Blumkin is on assignment. So, Peter, we're going to change the pace. No baseball, no school shootings for a change.
That's good.
We're going to talk about a book that you wrote. Can you give me an idea when the book Presumed Guilty was written by you?
Yeah, well, that's funny. When did I write this? It had to be 4 or 5 years ago. Casey Anthony was a woman who was accused by the police of killing her 2-year-old daughter. And what happened was the child was found in the woods, and all of the commentators on television, starting with Nancy Grace, led people to believe that Casey Anthony was this horrible person who, in fact, murdered her daughter. The gentleman who I wrote this book with, Jose Baez, was Casey Anthony's attorney, and one of the finest people I've ever known, and a man who spent so many hours working on this case. For the last, say, year, he virtually worked on it for nothing. And I'll give you the details in a minute, but what ultimately happened is that the thing went in front of the jury, and it took the jury about 2 hours to figure out that the evidence, the so-called evidence brought about by the prosecutor, was trumped up, was phony. And they found her innocent, as they should have, very, very quickly. So,
did they find her innocent or just not guilty? I mean, they found O.J. not guilty, but nobody thought he was innocent. Was this a case when they found her not guilty that folks ended up thinking, well, she was innocent?
Well, the folks, you're talking about the folks. The folks
I'm talking about
talking about the jury?
What is it?
The jury?
No, I'm talking about the
public
opinion.
Public opinion didn't matter. Public opinion was so filled with falsehoods and, quote, fake news that it didn't matter what the jury did. People today are still convinced that Casey Anthony killed her daughter, despite the fact that there is literally zero evidence that she did such a thing. And I can tell you exactly how the whole thing went down, and when we get finished by the end of this half hour, you too will understand that she had absolutely nothing to do with the death of her daughter.
Okay.
So ask away.
Oh, okay. I'll go from tallies. My tally watched this case, as did everyone else, and was appalled by two things.
Okay.
Was appalled by the fact that they could try a case in the courts before it ever how Tally asked, could you ever find a jury that, with all that was said, that was impartial? She wants to know, was it a change of venue?
Yeah, the so-called murder was supposed to have taken place in Orlando, and they ended up moving the trial to Clearwater, which was, 50 miles north and west of Orlando. So they did have a change of venue for where the trial was. And I, too, was amazed that they could find enough jurors who had not been, influenced by all the crapola that they saw on TV from Nancy Grace and Geraldo Rivera and all the rest of these so-called commentators.
Okay, the little girl disappeared.
She was found in the woods. She was found in the woods.
Okay,
what happened.
How long was she missing? Because Tally seems to remember that the time she was found and the time she was missing.
A bunch of months. It was, yes. When it was first discovered in parentheses by Casey's parents that the child was missing, and the police were finally called. Casey had. She said that the babysitter got the kid. She made up a bunch of stories about what might have happened to her. And that's really what set people off to believe that somehow Casey Anthony had killed her daughter, because for the first, say, month of all of this, she made up these preposterous stories about what might have happened to the kid.
Did she accuse her own dad, her own father?
Well, that's the question. That is the question of the week, and I will tell you exactly why that's the question of the week. Because the problem Casey Anthony had was that her father, who was a former police officer, which is the reason nobody looked at dear old Dad, had been having sex with Casey since Casey was 8 years old. So when Casey was giving birth to this baby when she was 18, 19 years old, dear old Dad got in the car and drove to Daytona Beach and tried to commit suicide because he was sure that he was the father of that baby. Okay? So Casey Anthony has a problem. Casey's been getting doodled by dear old Dad since she was 8 years old, and she, you know the way it is with these relationships, she didn't want to get her dad in trouble. You know, and there was another reason she didn't want to get her dad in trouble, and we'll go to what actually happened on that particular day when the kid disappeared.
She didn't want to get him in trouble, but she accused him of it.
No, he accused her of it. She never accused him of it. He accused her of it. He was willing to put his daughter in jail to keep people from knowing that he was having sex with his daughter.
Oh, wow.
This is not a good person. This is not
a little more confusing than your average case. You didn't have that in law school, did you? You didn't.
Yeah,
pederast. Like that came up.
The old pederast defense, but what happened on the day the child died is that Casey was upstairs in bed, and the father says, I'll take her downstairs and take care of her. And the father must have somehow, been doing something when the kid opened up the sliding doors, walked out to the above ground swimming pool, and stupidly somebody had left the ladder in place. And so the kid climbs up the ladder, jumps in the pool. Nobody watches her do it. She can't swim, and so what happens? She drowned. Okay? She drowned. So Casey comes downstairs, where's my kid? The father goes, I don't know. And they look around, and sure enough, they find the kid dead in the swimming pool.
Now, was he negligent, or was he actually, did he actually want to kill the kid?
Well, no, he didn't want to kill the kid. Was he negligent?
So he was negligent, just not watching the kid.
No, just not watching the kid, right, just not watching.
Okay.
So the father says to Casey, don't worry, dear, I'll take care of it. And what the father had been doing for the last 10 years is every time the pet dog died, the father would get one of those big black plastic bags, put the dog in the bag, and throw the bag in the woods. And that's what he did with the baby. He got one of these black
plastic... The baby was prepared, according to Tally, and what she remembers of the case, was the baby not wrapped in a favorite blanket with duct tape covering...
Yeah, well, the duct tape was around the edges of the black plastic bag so that when he threw the whole thing into the woods, the baby wouldn't come flying out.
Okay. lovely service.
Yeah. So for a while nobody could find the baby, and then some guy, there were hundreds and hundreds of people, going through the area looking for the baby. Where's the baby?
With
Finally,
dogs and stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, somebody finally found the baby. Somebody found the baby. So what does dear old dad do? He immediately does everything he can to put the blame on his daughter, Casey.
Well, it's a piece of work.
The charge that somehow the baby ended up in the trunk of Casey Anthony's car. They tried that. There were flies in the car.
Was there a smell of a corpse in the car?
The smell of pizza. The smell of the pizza that had been in the car for about 2 weeks was the smell.
Right.
That baby, I am telling you, was never in the trunk of that car, ever.
Okay.
But they came up with the prosecutor, with the father, they came up with these cockamamie, theories of the case. They found one time that Casey had looked up chloroform. So they were sure that really what had happened is that Casey had chloroformed the baby to kill the baby. But, of course, anybody who ever testified about Casey said that this is a woman who adored her child, and that never, ever, ever had there been a moment when that she didn't take care of that child, beautifully. And the other aspect of it, which was so weird, is that there was a point where Casey was supposedly working, if not for Disneyland, for one of those, Universal Studios, one of those places. And at a certain point, she was pretending every day to going to work when she had actually quit. And the reason she did that, as it turned out, because the police, caught her in the lie where she was telling them that she was working at Universal. The reason that she quit her job is that she did not want to leave her baby with the father, because she didn't know whether the father was going to try to have sex with the baby. That's right. It was just, So this poor kid is just, she didn't want to tell the truth.
Was she charged with first-degree murder?
She was charged with murder. Yeah, they wanted the death penalty. Yeah. They wanted the death penalty. She hadn't done anything. They wanted the death penalty. Nancy Grace wanted the death penalty. Geraldo Rivera wanted the death penalty.
When did it come out about the father-daughter relationship? Was that
came out in my book. Came out in Presumed Guilty.
Oh, that was that was never mentioned in court or anything?
I don't think so. I don't think that it was.
Okay.
I don't think so. See, according to Jose, that the evidence that the prosecution was putting up was so phony that he was able to have the jury understand that it was all phony without having to bring up the incest business.
Okay.
So in a way, dear old dad got away with, having sex with his daughter since she was 8 years old and throwing the baby in the woods. I mean, nobody has ever come after this guy and said, hey, look what you did, ever.
When she was proven innocent in court, wouldn't the police, wouldn't they go, well, we've had testimony in court, we're just going to have to ask you a few questions at that point.
You mean to the father?
Yeah.
Sorry about the father. The father's a policeman. They're not going to go. Policemen don't get.
He's still a policeman?
No, but he was a policeman. And former policemen and real, and policemen get a break.
Yeah, I know how that works.
Yeah. So, dear old dad.
Unless you're Serpico.
Unless you're Serpico. But that's right. Serpico learned his lesson. They shot him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did that change things appreciably? Because from Serpico, which was 30 years ago, you can go to, or 40 years ago, 50 maybe, you can go to OJ, and the cops operated with OJ in the same manner that they've done every 10 years a police scandal, just like a basketball scandal every 10 years.
Well, the OJ case, this is changing the subject, but if you remember, there was a fella, and we watched it on TV because somebody used their phone to take a picture of it. Rodney King was the guy's name. And there were about 8 policemen who spent about 20 minutes just beating the shit out of this guy. You remember seeing that?
Yes.
Oh, these 8 or 9 white guys kicking him and smashing him and just beating them to a pulp. And they took these policemen to court and charged them with, beating the shit out of this guy. And they were found innocent. And quite frankly, the mistake that the prosecutors in the O.J. Simpson case made was that they held that trial in an area where the people on the jury were primarily African American.
Yeah, and they were also caught in about 11 different lies with transferring the blood.
Well,
and it was so.
But I mean, it was clear that O.J. killed those 2 people. I mean, please.
Yeah, but they were adding on to assure that they'd get the victory.
Johnnie Cochran, who's just too brilliant for words, when they had him try these gloves on, and he extends his hands and says, I can't get the gloves to fit on my hand. If you've ever seen the Seinfeld episode where they had Susan Mischke tries on the bra, and the bra doesn't fit, it's the most hilarious thing in the whole wide world. At any rate, for the reasons having more to do with what happened in that prior case to that poor fellow who was beat to a pulp by those white cops, the African American jurors got back by finding O.J. innocent. And then that's really why that happened. And the very interesting thing, as people remember, is that there were 2 reactions to the verdict. In the African American community, they were hooping and hollering and carrying on and celebrating, whereas the white community was absolutely, totally stunned, because there was no question that O.J. Simpson killed these 2 people.
I'm walking down the street while the trial is going on, and I met eyes with a black guy walking my way. I go, how you doing? Like, on the street, how you doing? He goes, oh, good, O.J. caught a break today.
Yeah.
Whatever that was in the trial. That's how good he was doing.
Yeah.
Because the black community knew what the police were. They knew how they are in 99 other cases. And but they also knew you had to know that O.J. was guilty. I mean, but
O.J.
I'll tell you how
almost cut her head off. I mean, there's an anger there. I mean, he took a knife and almost cut his woman's neck, almost cut her head off her body.
Yeah, random killings don't come. That was an act of rage.
No,
that was an act of rage.
Absolutely.
But there was something by Marcia Clark, a demonstration, where they found blood that was both O.J.'s blood, the delivery guy, Goldman, and the wife's blood. Yep. It came from the back of a cut on O.J.'s hand when he reached in to open the door of the Bronco.
Right.
I think it was the same car as in the chase. He left blood from his knuckle in a place where, yes, they did spray blood all over the place and this, that, and the other thing, but it was a mixture of those 3 blood things. It was clear as hell, and she spelled it out, and I thought to myself, he's guilty. There is no way you could look at that. How could a mixture of blood appear behind the door latch of the car if of those 3 people, the blood altogether, and the jury just didn't get it.
Which is exactly why, that's an excellent point that you bring up, which is actually why this had as much to do with Rodney King and what happened to him as it did about O.J. O.J. is the luckiest guy on the face of this earth, and for him to do something so stupid as to go in with a bunch of guys brandishing guns to get his memorabilia back. I mean, truly, what could this guy have been thinking, really?
Which he was trying to hide from Goldman's father anyway. I mean, that.
Oh.
And
the guy's lucky he got his life back, for crying out loud. Be happy. But
yeah. But he goes and I mean, those last 10 years on him have been, if you've seen him walking out of prison and what have you.
Well, you know, his two children live in St. Petersburg, and there is some talk that O.J. may be moving here.
Whoa.
Let's go back to Casey Anthony for a moment. And talk
let me ask you this. Would that be a possible book for you?
No.
Would you consider writing a book?
No. What are you going to say? How I didn't, he already tried that once. How I didn't do it or something like that. Remember?
Yes. But who wrote that and how was that written? You could get, I don't know.
It was written because O.J. ended up making about $500,000 is why it was written. And I'll tell you a story, too, and that was the same time I had written 7 about Mickey Mantle. And the publisher, which was Harcourt, who was the publisher? Was Murdoch's publisher. Decided not to publish both those books. So I got caught up. In the O.J. Simpson business. I ended up getting that book published by somebody else. It was really something.
Did you actually chat with him and talk to him and
Mickey Mantle?
No, O.J.
No, I had nothing to do with O.J. I wrote a book called 7, which was about Mickey Mantle.
Yes, but the publishers were looking to put together a book on O.J., you said.
They had a book. O.J. had written a book called If I Did It.
Okay. It was from the same publisher. I got it.
Same publisher, right.
Now, who wrote the book? O.J.'s name was on it, but who wrote it?
I really don't know. Don't know.
Okay. I have a literary question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have your name on 2 books about Billy Martin.
Yep.
I tend to think that Billy wrote the first one, and you wrote.
Well, Billy didn't write the first one.
He didn't write it, but there's more.
Oh yeah, well that's what an autobiography is. That's how an autobiography works. He tells me his life, and I put it down in words, and it comes out the way he wants it to come out, which is the way it should be.
Right.
Now, after Billy died,
that you wrote, it had nothing to do with Billy's input. This was about Billy.
Billy had died. Billy had died when I wrote Wild, High, and Tight. Billy was dead. So certainly there was no input.
It's clearly a more revealing book about Billy's entire being.
Well, sure. And biographies always
managed to preserve his way of thinking. I was going to lay a slug on him. Do you remember writing that?
Not really, but say so.
No, but it was just how you would think Billy would say it. A street urchin, a street kid.
I never realized until I went to Oakland to sit with Billy's friends and Billy's mother and Billy's sisters, what an absolute tough childhood he had had. I mean, he was really something, something of a thug.
Yeah.
I mean, he would go into bars and pick on sailors and beat them up. He enjoyed hitting people. He was a very angry man.
Yeah. And a boxer too, a skilled boxer.
And a skilled boxer, but you could never say that he was ever, fought in a fight, because his fights, for the most part, were he would take a sucker punch at somebody and knock him out.
Like the marshmallow salesman.
Like the marshmallow salesman, precisely. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Yep.
And I think Brewer, the guy that sued him, the pitcher that ended up suing him.
Yep.
But like all bullies, they get their butts kicked sometimes as well.
Well, as he got into his 60s, he every once in a while would pick a fight with the wrong guy. The Yankee pitcher who he got in a fight with. They were both rather drunk, and the guy literally beat him to a pulp.
Yeah, broke his arm.
Broke his arm, yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you what, I don't care what anybody says, he was the best manager that ever was. He was a spectacular, spectacular manager.
In the flap of one of the books is a picture of you and Billy in some dugout, he in his A's uniform, and you both have these just like you liked being there at that moment. Kind
you kidding me? It was heaven.
Yeah,
it was spectacular. That's where I belong.
I tried to get that. I tried to pull that picture up on the internet and couldn't. And I like it on my wall. I just don't want to cut the thing. If you have a picture of that, scan it for me and send it to me.
Yeah, I don't think that I do. I don't think that I do. No.
All right.
No.
But you just it had to be heaven to be there to write that stuff.
Well, the reason I was in Oakland. The reason I was in Oakland for number one was that I had to make sure that when the book came out that Billy wasn't going to say that I made stuff up. So I traveled with the team when he was with Oakland to make sure that he read it and to make sure that he signed off. He would sign his name at the end of every chapter as proof that he had read it. And that's what I was doing there. Yeah.
So you had him sign at the end. Wow, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
I wasn't, Reggie Jackson's book, I don't remember who he wrote it with, but Reggie Jackson ended up saying, I never said those things, and I was going to make sure that wasn't going to happen to me. And it didn't.
Good planning.
Yeah.
Good planning.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Kaylee.
Yeah, just for a second.
Do you think the little girl got justice? That her mom didn't do it.
Justice? What kind of justice? The girl died. She drowned in the swimming pool. There was no justice. What kind of justice?
Okay, but by the trial, I mean, they say it's for the survivors and this.
Who benefited? Who benefited from this trial? It was terrible. The father knew what happened. The father knew why the kid drowned. Knew it was his fault. The mother knew what happened. The mother knew that the father had been having sex with with her daughter ever since since the daughter was 8 years old. So the mother knew what was going on. What's that?
She lived with a man all those years who was
Still does. Yeah.
Oh,
Still does.
Lord.
Oh, Lord. You bet.
What a world.
Anyhow, it's now time for Homeland, and I have to go.
Okay. Thank you for this. I'm going to play it for Tally. And
if Tally has any questions, have her call me.
Well, I know she doesn't know about the father and the daughter.
Well, if you go to AVE Books, you can actually buy a copy of this thing and have her read it. Believe it or not.
We will. She'll do a book report for you.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great week, Ralphie. Take care.
You too, my friends. See you next week. Everybody out there, it's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. If you enjoy our offerings, either this show or any of them, please box up some lightly used children's books and take them to the Head Start program in whatever community you live. Kids need to read. They need to become school ready. They need to get their noses out of the games and the computers and the devices and develop a passion and enjoy what we all on this network enjoy, is just reading books. It's great. It's gone out of vogue in the last few years in this country, and you know what? It's probably what started the downfall, if nothing else. So get Head Start program, a bunch of books, lightly used children's books. Society will be better off. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll be back next week. Thank you, Peter Golenbock. The book we talked about was Presumed Guilty, and it can be found on Amazon. Buy a new copy. That's all. Buy a new copy. Adios, everybody.